What up? It's time for a new video, and here it is. Player conflict is really ever good storytelling, especially in the wrong hands. The DM also tried to manipulate me. And I'm gonna skip all the TLDR shit, because this is long enough as it is. Also, warning about self-harm, trigger warning, FYI, A good online friend of mine named Sammy wanted to run a Vampire the Masquerade Camarilla game. I've been playing D&D since high school, and Pathfinder for a few years now, so I was already very interested in exploring a different kind of tabletop RPG experience. The group was as follows: myself, a friend named Jessica and her boyfriend Kyle, Jason and Nathan, who was Sammy's boyfriend. From the get-go, Sammy is by far one of the most immersive DMs I've ever had. She can put on different voices, is witty, and can play the NPCs so well sometimes you forget that she's Sammy behind it all. I'll kiss my fingers to that storytelling ability, 10 out of 10. My first issue came up in the Camarilla game, with Nathan's character in particular. Nathan decided to play a bad to the bones type, which is fine, until it turned into Nathan's character wanting to antagonize mine at every turn. They didn't know each other well, beyond their sisters dating, but she went out of her way to help pay off his bail to get him out when his sister came to her and asked for help. No questions asked, and she didn't even ask that he pay her back. In her mind, she was doing him and his sister a kindness, and she would get the debt sorted out on her own. He actually surprised her by paying off the debt himself, but he'd done some shady things to get the money that she was not aware of. I figured all was cool. This was an interesting way for the characters to meet and shake hands and have good grounds to move forward on. I thought wrong. So wrong. From then on, he was just an asshole to her. He tried blackmailing her into helping him learn how to feed, even though he had a sire willing to help him, attacked her sister, and being the charismatic character she is, whenever she would try and bring everyone together, he would just sit back and mock her, degrade her, etc. At some point, I had to have a heart-to-heart with him and his girlfriend, advising that it was getting to an uncomfortable point since I didn't see the actual in-character reasoning, and there was none. He simply said, he's an asshole. But he wasn't an asshole like that to anyone else, just my character. But he said he would do better to keep that in mind and tone it down. See, I'm just an asshole to everyone. That's how I operate. I'm not just bad to the bones, I'm a bad person in general. He didn't. It really escalated in the very next session when, after my character invited everyone to her home to have a chat, Nathan's character attacked her with the intent to kill. Obviously, there were other things in the story that he had done to work against her, but this was the straw that broke the camel's back. And why did he suddenly try and kill her? Because she asked him very politely to stop a certain line of conversation that was deeply uncomfortable and fresh for her. For context, her sire had broken several of the kindred traditions in order to save her, a human at the time, from the Malkavian that was trying to turn her for his wicked experiments. He was put on trial and, while not killed, was sentenced to be staked and subjugated to nightmares for 10 years. A rather light sentence, all considering, but there was a reason why that I won't get into for fear of this getting too long. Clearly, my character was distraught about it. She effectively lost not only her sire, but her lover, and yes, it would only be for 10 years, but his reputation was soared because of it. And she was left with everything he had, and an entire community against her, and several vampires within that community were already making moves against her, and she wasn't even a week-old kindred yet. During this powwow to hammer out some details regarding a completely separate thing, Nathan's character starts to ask and mock her about her sire. She took a moment to keep her cool, then politely asked him to move on from that and to focus on the task at hand. He said no, that he wanted to talk about it now, so it's getting talked about now. Again, my character pressed that they had bigger matters to attend to and there was nothing more to be said about her sire's situation. He then went off on the deep end, grew claws, and moved to attack with the intent to kill. Even his girlfriend was like, whoa, that's extreme, and the rest of the players were shocked. Me, as a player, was quite annoyed at this time since I literally had a conversation with him and the DM to cool off on this sort of behaviour. My character isn't a fighter, by the way. She was built entirely around charisma and presence. Anyway, she managed to not get killed in the fight and spooked him enough with dread gaze to have him leave her home. I was on edge over this. And after the session ended, I reached out to Sammy to express my discomfort and figured out a way to move forward. At this point, my character wanted nothing to do with his and was effectively going to leave the party. Sammy sided with her boyfriend completely, even though previously she had stressed that attacking with intent to kill was not going to score him brownie points with anyone. And asked several times if he was sure about this, and even expressed that it was an extreme reaction. So yes, Sammy sided with him completely and even said, I saw nothing wrong with his reaction. I left the conversation feeling defeated and wondering if I was really the problem child here. That conversation would leave me thinking, wow, this is how Nathan must treat her in real life, huh? Sammy, when I want to talk about something, we talk about it now, goddammit. That's the kind of guy that Nathan is. A few sessions later, Sammy called the campaign to a close because, and I quote, "it was beginning to get too dark and sad." There were other reasons for that, of course, but she expressed interest in wanting to run something far more lighthearted and fun. The following week, she came to the group and stated that she wanted to run a mage game instead, out of the World of Darkness books. Mage and changing have always been my favourite, so the moment she said that, I was on board. She advised that she used mage as a basis, and there was a lot of homebrew on top of it to make things flow better for her as a DM who preferred storytelling. We were all okay with this, of course. I decided to make a sorcerer with the understanding that the sorcerer would be hunted. But, given that this entire campaign was intended to be very light and fun, it wouldn't get too dark or crazy, and I trusted Sammy completely. And against my better judgment after she sided with Nathan previously, I only made it 3 sessions before I had to drop out this week. Nathan made a character who, again, was an absolute ass. He made a college-aged bully who became a wizard with a group of demons whispering in her ear. This character harassed Jessica's character, had her assaulted in the school library by a guy because she was blackmailing her, and she had to listen to everything she said for her to do, or else her secret would get out to the entire school. So when Jessica's character finally caved, it turned into, "I need you to help me get Op's character." Jessica's character, who was new and good friends with mine, fought back and said no. In response, Nathan's character literally set fire to the entire university and said, "This is all your fault. If you had just agreed to do this one thing for me, no one would be dying." Oh my god, he sounds like such an abusive boyfriend. I feel so bad for Sammy. Nathan's character would end up killing several college students with the fire, and even went so far as to lock Jessica's character in a room and threaten to let her die unless she agreed to help her. Jessica's character agreed to help her, of course, since she didn't want to die. As you can imagine, listening to all of this, I was already put off. I had already expressed my general discomfort with player PvP, and I had told Sammy before that I vastly prefer the storyteller DM to come up with the big baddies, not the players. I don't want players working against each other because it just breeds so much negativity and creates more problems than it will ever solve. Either way, it was very clear from the conversation that Nathan's character had with Jessica's that he had every intention of killing mine to get what he wanted. I was pretty annoyed after that session and decided to sit on it for a few days to see if I was still bothered by it. Well, I waited a little under a week and I was, so I sent a very polite message to Sammy advising that I was going to drop out of the mage game and thanked her for the great story thus far. She asked why. She asked why. Oh my god, like how fucking dense do you have to be? And I was very honest in that I was under the impression the story was going to be very light-hearted and fun, vastly different from the Camarilla game, but the tone currently was very chaotic evil. Nathan's character was doing all of this for power after all, and it just wasn't sitting well with me. And since everyone else seemed to be enjoying the overall game, I felt it best to excuse myself and not dampen anyone's spirits by, yet again, expressing my discomfort with player PvP and conflict that could never, ever result in characters working together. Sammy told me that she was the one working the strings behind Nathan's character and that I shouldn't have an issue with it because it's not player-driven conflict but DM-created conflict. She advised that the demons Nathan's character had met were telling his character to go after mine, and even confirmed that there was intent to kill, and even urged the character to set fire to the university, and I said that's all well and good, but she set the precedence for the campaign being lighthearted and fun, and knowing my boundaries, why would she create yet another player conflict that she knew would turn me off from the game completely? Especially using her boyfriend who previously had put me in the same position without her telling him to. This then just led to the strangest, most manipulative conversation in my life, and that's saying a lot. Sammy snapped and went on a rant about how she's failed me, her boyfriend, that she's a fuck-up, and that she can never do right by her friends. Yeah, all of this is like screaming abused girlfriend, like Nathan is a complete scumbag. And that she should just kill herself to end it all because she deserves that, but she just doesn't have the courage to end it all. This turned into me having to drop my entire explanation in order to coddle her. I wound up apologizing for how I was feeling, and even gave into the idea that I was somehow in the wrong for how I was feeling, and perhaps I could stick this out. Just maybe. After she apparently called off, I had the sudden realization that I was being straight up manipulated, but I stuck to my guns, thanked her again for the stories, and advised I would 100% not be talked back into the game. And that's that. So since that story itself was almost 10 minutes long, and I kind of loosely edited it because of how long it was, I'm gonna go ahead and call it here for video. I know I said I was gonna make longer ones, but I think that story is kind of so fucked up and lengthy that it kind of deserves one all to itself. Her sire had broken several of the kindred traditions, that's a hard word to say, drink every time I fuck up a word. For context, her sire had broken several of the kindred traditions.